This is WFYI News Now. It's November 22nd, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, a proposal to provide city support for a $300 million downtown development project. What lawmakers think of concerns about birth control access under a second Trump administration. And we'll hear from a state task force that spent the last 2 years reviewing Indiana's tax system.
I think it's time to get serious about what's happened to the tax caps after 13 years of one-party control and 15 or 16 years of the tax caps. I don't think they're working for the homeowners.
Those stories coming up. But first, the Indianapolis Public Library Center for Black Literature and Culture recently announced a series of programs for 2025. The center will host several events next year, which include book talks, workshops, a movie series, and a media arts and science program. Alexis Hunt became CBLC's manager in April, taking the position after Nichelle Hayes, the former director, announced her leave from the library this year. Hayes was backed by the community during a 2022 search for a new library CEO after the longtime leader resigned amid accusations of racism and ableism. Hunt hopes new programming can help the organization move forward from years of controversy.
In order to make change, we have to acknowledge it, and we have to do what we can when we can, meaning that, when we hold these positions in leadership, and when we acknowledge things that have happened, we can move forward, we can bring the community together.
The CBLC will kick off its events in January with the local artist workshop. All programs are free. A downtown development project is moving quickly through the city approval process. WFYI's Jill Sheridan reports on the new proposal that provides more than $15 million in city support for the $300 million development.
The redevelopment project raises the old CSX building to build a new hotel and entertainment venue across the street from Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee recently passed a new tax increment financing or TIF proposal to help fund the project. Councilor Jared Evans voted in favor but noted the development could have gone further.
If the pandemic taught us anything, we cannot be a downtown of hotels. We have to have people living downtown. I would have loved to have seen this thing going up 20, 30 stories tall with the residential component a part of it.
Simon family development company Boxcar leads the project that includes a new 4,000-seat theater supported by Live Nation. The project in Indy's wholesale district received approval from a historic preservation commission in September. I'm Jill Sheridan.
Some reproductive rights advocates are concerned access to birth control could be limited under a second Trump administration. But Side Effects Public Media's Elizabeth Gabriel reports some lawmakers think these concerns are premature.
Just about 14 states in D.C. have legal protections to the right to contraception. Federal lawmakers and 17 states have tried to pass legislation to protect birth control access, but Republican votes blocked these efforts. Still, Indiana Republican Senator Sue Glick says that shouldn't raise alarms. She doesn't think state or federal lawmakers will limit birth control access in the future.
I have not heard Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else talk about banning birth control. I don't know where that's coming from.
Glick doesn't foresee an Indiana lawmaker proposing a bill during the upcoming legislative session that would codify the right to birth control in the state constitution. But she says she's not opposed to the idea. Elizabeth Gabriel, Side Effects Public Media.
And for our final story today, help is likely on the way for property tax payers, but that help will also take time. That's the message from a state task force that spent the last 2 years reviewing Indiana's tax system. The task force issued recommendations Wednesday that broadly pointed toward improving transparency and simplicity in property taxes, providing relief particularly for those aged 65 and older, and reducing taxes for businesses. Task Force Chair Jeff Thompson says any property tax changes won't affect next year's bills.
People understand that in the 25 session, you can't affect the 25 bills. It'll be 26. That's been the standard. And so I don't see, at least most people, not understanding that.
Democratic Representative Ed Delaney was the only task force member to vote against the recommendations. He says lawmakers need to take bolder action to address a tax shift over the last decade that's hurt homeowners.
I think it's time to get serious about what's happened to the tax caps after 13 years of one-party control and 15 or 16 years of the tax caps. I don't think they're working for the homeowners.
Thompson says the task force avoided more specific recommendations because they would have been too detailed for the task force to agree on. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share. And follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday.